Hello and welcome to episode 25 of Dunk's Movie Corner, or Dunk's Movie Corner Pod, however you found it. If you stumbled in, don't stumble away. If you're new, welcome. If you're not new, welcome back. All the little phrases you may have heard before if you're not new. If you are new, this is just a short ramble, recap, whatever you want to call it, of everything I've watched in roughly a week in TV or limited series or most likely films. And as I've said before, this is more of a companion podcast to the Movie Bros, which is a weekly hour or so long podcast of myself, Duncan, and my brother Hayden, where we pick a movie, watch that movie, and kind of discuss, ramble, break it down, dissect, all the other words you can possibly think of. And then we share that with you fine folk. That is weekly. This is also potentially, hopefully, usually a weekly podcast. This is usually anywhere between 10 to 20 minutes or so of just a quick recap. So if that is what you're kind of looking for, I would say stay tuned, as I don't really have a ton to say at the top otherwise. I mean, you can find this podcast on Spotify, Amazon, Apple, and you can also find it on Instagram at Dunk's Movie Corner Pod, where I post what I've been watching, what I'm going to be watching, episodes rolling out, etc., etc. If you have comments on things I should be watching, let me know. There's a spot on Spotify or Instagram for comments. Otherwise, let's kind of quickly get into it. I started this week, let's see, with Murder on the Orient Express, not the one recently with Kenneth Branagh as the detective, but the one from the 70s. I only picked this because Sean Connery, who I had just watched, if you listen to the previous episode, in The Name of the Rose, and you will obviously know him as James, but like the original James Bond from I think it's the 60s. Either way, this is late 70s. It's supposed to be a murder mystery, and it kind of is, but I can clearly see why this was not great. The acting of the lead detective, Hercule Poirot, I can never say his name right. He's Belgian. Uh, it's way over the top. It's way campy. It's not interesting. It doesn't feel overly detective-y, if that's the right word, or is a word. Either way, I gave this 2.5 stars. Like, it was all right, but I can clearly see it's the original. Like, it's the first time they tried to make this, and I think it's been remade 2 or 3 times since. And I feel like the most recent iteration is the best of the bunch. So I say check that out if you watched this and felt like it could have been better. That was in 1974, and again, I'm rating this out of 5 stars, including half stars. This is on Letterboxd, which is kind of like a social media film review app. It's just an easy way for me to keep track of what I watch. And if you checked out the Instagram recently, I also posted the stats for last year, for 2024, of what I watched, how many reviewed, all those kind of interesting data points. If that's something that interests you, so I say check that out on my Instagram stories. And then from there, some context, every once in a while, me and my housemates will pick a movie. We'll just thumb through either Netflix or HBO Max or something. Just put a movie on when we're all home and just kind of watch that, and usually just shit on the movie because usually we pick kind of bad movies. This time we watched Blame the Game, which is a 2024 release on Netflix. It is in German. It's a German movie. It's basically a game night of like 3 or 4 couples kind of gone awry, which is where I feel like it was obviously. I mean, I feel like the whole it being in German couldn't, I couldn't connect fully to it, but I could see how it's kind of like a discount version of, if you know, the other movie Game Night with the guy from Ozarks, of course, Jason Bateman, excuse me. That's a lot of fun. I would actually really recommend that. So if you somehow, I mean, I don't even know how we found this, to be honest, stumbled on Blame the Game, and thought it was not great, because it wasn't. Uh, Definitely check out Game Night. That's a lot of fun. So this was a 1.5 out of 5. From there, I watched Meet the Parents. Netflix recommended this to me. It's came out in 2000. This is Ben Stiller. This is Robert De Niro. It was. I mean, I gave it a 3 out of 5. It's totally fine. Not a terrible movie. Not an amazing movie. It's definitely of the era. It's definitely. I could see that if I saw this in 2000 and I was in my ish, where it would resonate more with me. It's Ben Stiller trying to get Robert De Niro's approval to marry his daughter, and everything that could go wrong while he's visiting does go wrong, of course. It's fun, but I can't see myself ever rewatching it, but at least I will know if someone references it what it is. So that's a 3 out of 5. From there, I watched For Your Consideration. Now, for context on this, the director, which is Christopher Guest, you may recognize him from he did Best in Show, which I think is his most well known. That's the main thing that I know him from. He did Waiting for Guffman. He does kind of these sort of oddball, but not like kooky oddball, like realistic oddball, like satirical movies about different industries. Like Best in Show is all about like dog shows. For Your Consideration, which is the one I watched this week, this is all about Hollywood and how if a movie with a bunch of people who are never really made it in Hollywood think that they might actually get nominated for Oscars and things like that for the movie that they're working on. So it's them getting swept up in the glamour and the gossip and the fame, the idea of fame. It's fun. There's lots of funny little bits. I think Best in Show is better. So again, if you saw this, I would say I would recommend Best in Show. That again is Christopher Guest is the director. You can also look him up. I would give this a 3 out of 5. Like, it was pretty good, but again, I wouldn't be like, wow, I need to tell people about this. However, from there, I watched, or really rewatched, because I've seen this movie many, many times, but it's called Master and Commander, The Far Side of the World. It came out in 2003. It's easily a 5 out of 5 for me. This was a movie that Hayden and I decided we'd watch for the Movie Bros. So if you want the full episode, that has been released by now. I think that came out yesterday. So if you want a full little recap, that was about an hour's worth of talking. Check out that. But this is excellent. It's a historical epic, but not like it came out, I want to say 2 or 3 years after Gladiator, and it felt like that was like the era of this kind of movie where just everyone like Russell Crowe is fantastic in it. Paul Bettany as his like doctor, who also is kind of like his almost his conscious the fighting, the battles, where they go explore the Galapagos during the Neapolitic. Sorry, I can never say that word right. The wars around Napoleon. However, that's how I'm gonna say it because I cannot say that. I've tried so many times. It's just one of those words for me. I don't know. I've seen it again. It's something that I've seen with family, with friends. I've had someone show up on my birthday with it on a projector as like a date idea. It's weird. I wouldn't call this like one of my favorite movies in like my top 3 or something, but it is. It's definitely maybe top 10. Yeah, if you have any chance to watch this anywhere, if you want to rent it, if you want to borrow it, if you want to steal it, maybe I don't condone that, but again, the movie's pretty fantastic. I would check it out. I will say it is 2 hours and I want to say like 18 minutes, but it never feels like it really drags. There's always something keeping your attention, and it's not just one storyline. It's because you are on this one boat with the same like 160 guys. So you see a lot of different like days in the life of living on this boat, and maybe it's the captain or the doctor or like all these little stories that weave together, but there's still the overarching theme of they are hunting this one French battleship around uh, the world, more or less. I mean, yes, I know that's the kind of the quote, the title, but bit of a ramble. Either way, I love it. I would recommend this to almost anyone as long as they kind of know what they're getting. It's not a light. There's not a lot of. I would say there's funny little like haha moments, but this is in no way a comedy. There is some pretty violent action, but there's never a point where it feels gruesome or over the top or grotesque. Like it definitely feels grounded in realism, and it's never there for like a shock value. It feels like it serves a very specific purpose. And I say this because Hayden and I literally talked about this like 3 days ago and then edited and posted it. So again, if you want an actual interesting conversation, not just one person rambling, again, check out the Movie Bros for that. So I rewatched that. That's a 5 out of 5. And then I don't know what caused me to want to rewatch this, but I rewatched Oblivion. This is 13. Tom Cruise always kind of plays the same character. Some people just do that, but I do think I like him as a character because he is now almost just a character himself. I think he's a good actor. even if I don't always agree with his religious views. I think he's the Scientology thing aside. I think he's great. This is done by Joseph Kosinski. You might recognize him from Tron Legacy, which happens to be the next movie that Hayden and I are going to be reviewing. So I'll watch that this coming week. He did The Dig. He did Top Gun Maverick. He did Spiderhead, which was on Netflix with Chris Hemsworth and Miles Teller. Yeah, I'm very excited for F1. That's his next movie with Brad Pitt about Formula One racing. Just a side note. I don't know why, like 3, 4 years ago, I got really into Formula One. Like, I know all the drivers, the teams, the drama, the gossip, the races. No, I don't wake up crazy early on the weekends because it's a European thing with the time difference to watch the races, but I look at recaps. If you're ever curious, the Drive to Survive show on Netflix, where it's real camera crews just following around the teams during the season, is A, it's fascinating. B, there's so much cool. I mean, it is people don't when I think of racing, I'm like, okay, NASCAR does not count as like a sport. You're driving in a circle. Yes, you're going very fast, but like this is the same speed, if not faster, and you are trying to pass on like a intricate track. Very cool. No, I don't want to just ramble about Formula One, but that's the next movie that the director's doing, so I'm actually really excited to see how that goes. I think that's supposed to release this coming summer, so I'm sure I'll probably watch that in theaters at least once, if not twice. I'm hoping I can convince Hayden to have that as an episode, so I would say stay tuned for that. But yes, Oblivion. Sorry, that was a super side track from Oblivion. Oblivion is it feels starkly beautiful. It feels very like the colors are very like slate colors, white, grays, blacks. The story it's fairly straightforward, but it's still interesting enough, and the characters, it's Tom Cruise, Morgan Freeman. The other two, the two women, I definitely recognize, well, at least one of them, but I can't like they're obviously not they are not the stars, but they are definitely in it. And I don't want to give away too much just in case you see it. I believe it's available on Netflix. If you haven't, I would give it a solid 4 out of 5. Like, no, it's not a perfect movie. It's not my favorite, but it's definitely like I would tell people to watch this if they're like, "Oh, should I watch this?" I would say yes, you should. That was Oblivion, and from there, I don't know what prompted me to watch this, but I watched Notting Hill, 1999. You can call it a rom-com with, yeah, I would definitely call it a rom-com with, oh god, Julia Roberts and Hugh Grant. Is it kind of sappy? Is he, I feel like Hugh Grant's entire, bit, yes, he's an attractive man, sure, but, his whole bit is, the bumbling, stumbling over your words British guy, and just because he's British, it makes it attractive to maybe women. I don't really, I don't get it, obviously, personally, but apparently it worked because he was, the British rom com guy for years. I haven't really seen as much stuff with Julia Roberts as I guess I thought I have. She's all right in this. I think I've seen Mystic Pizza, which is also her. I think she did a little bit better in. She was a little more of a forced in that. This felt she was a little more passive. Granted, the movie is more about him than her. It's about him. This came out over 20 years ago. I don't feel like I'm spoiling anything, but this is about him meeting her haphazardly, uh, and then just her disappearing, and him dealing with the fact that it's just like, oh, she's just a famous person. She's an actress in the movie. It's just a famous person that he happened to meet, and you'll probably never meet her again. And she kind of sprinkles in and out of his life periodically, and then yeah, he goes for it. Of course, it works out as love stories usually do, at least in the movies. Side note, maybe that's why I don't know. Movies are so. I think that why I gravitate to them so much because A, I like storytelling, and B, I feel like they're such a cool medium that you can do so both yeah, narratively, but visually it's art that's moving. So yeah, that's why. But I also feel like I'm very impressionable, and I think having watched so many both positive and negative romantic either movies or movies that have romance in them that either work out or don't, I think that's maybe skewed my views on Romantic endeavors, of course, that should not discount any first world experience that I've either had or haven't had. Um, sorry, that's a whole separate topic for maybe professional help in a setting where someone should be taking notes and I'm sitting on a padded couch or something. Either way, I should just say that movies are a force that I feel like the public. How do I word this? I think no, I think they are grossly overpaid, actors and actresses and such. However, I think they are important to society, so it's not like they should be paid nothing. I know I don't think they are quote unquote essential workers, but if you have ever seen things like Dead Poet Society, where he talks about, oh yes, we need the people to build the roads and manage our accounts and all the like jobs that are which people think are important, but the reasons why we live are things like art and poetry, and obviously that's the whole movie Dead Poet Society, but acting and you know creative endeavors is kind of why we're here, as instead of why we have to be here to do these other jobs. I don't even know how I got on this ramble. Either way, uh, what was I even talking about? Jesus, Duncan. Oh, Notting Hill. Yeah, I would give this probably like a 3 out of 5. It's fine. I've definitely seen better rom coms. I've definitely seen worse rom coms. If you listen to the podcast, I want to say early December ish. If this is episode 25 or so, probably episode 20 ish, where I talked about Holiday, which was a 2024 release. It is horrendous. That is obviously compared to that, this is fantastic, but I'm just saying overall as a movie, 3 out of 5. Would I recommend? I mean, if they're like, oh, I want to watch this, should I? I'm like, yeah, you can, I would watch it. From there, sorry, that was such a tangent. I don't know where that came from, but I rewatched Atlantis: The Lost Empire. This was in 2001 that it first came out. I should preface this with there's, I think, 3 movies that came out around this time with a very specific kind of animation where it's 2D and 3D kind of combined with like painted landscapes in the background. So that's Atlantis, that's Treasure Planet, and that's Titan AE. I think there are others, but those are the big 3 that I can remember from my childhood, and that really, I think, struck home for most people. I don't know how we got on the subject at work at one of my jobs. Yes, I have more than one. I think I'm sure I've explained this at some point, so if you're listening and you're new, I'd say look back on an episode or two. I'm sure I've explained that I work more than one job. A lot of people these days do. Anyway, at some point at work, we were talking about these kind of movies, and we referenced having a movie night, so here we are. I think this was yesterday. Yeah, yesterday. It's all blending together. We went to a coworker's house and everyone brought their dogs. We sat down and watched the movie and kept the dogs at bay. But no, it was a lot of fun. And I think I've referenced this several times, but the environment and the way that you watch the movie is just, I feel like, as important as the movie itself. So yes, the movie is great. If you've never seen it, I highly recommend it. I'm sure it's obviously on Disney Plus. You can probably rent it from Amazon. You can probably find it for cheap at a thrift store. I think that's a good way to find movies, I've heard. But no, the actual experience of watching it with other people who either A, have seen it and love it and can, quote it or reference the characters, which is always lots of fun, or B, people who haven't seen it and are discovering it for the first time and seeing them discover it is also enjoyable. So long story short, is it a perfect movie? I don't know if it's perfect. I would probably give it a 4.5 out of 5. It's pretty dang close. Because, like, yeah, literally a tug of war fight between 2 dogs right in front of me was breaking out in the middle of the movie, and I still was captivated enough to watch the movie. So, oh, and a side note, if you've never seen this, there are 3 female, no, they're not leads. One of them is, I would say, a lead. 3 female characters in the movie, and I feel like as a child, not as a child, like a young, like 8 or 9 year old boy, I think at some point I was probably attracted to all 3 for different reasons. Because there's like a tomboy girl, there's like the like super alpha, like not inherently masculine, but like take charge blonde military chick, and then there's the like Atlantean like very whimsical, very mythic gal who is the sort of not co-star, because again, I feel like it's all about Milo Thatch, which is the main guy who is voiced by Michael J. Fox. Throwback before. No, this is after Back to the Future, right? Yeah, this is. Did I say 2000? What years is this? 2001, excuse me. Apparently, they made a sequel to this. Apparently, it was really not good. I never saw it. I'm glad I didn't see it. But long story long, if you haven't seen this, I would highly recommend checking it out. It's only 95 minutes, and it is a tight. There is no. They trim. Basically, there's no fat left on this movie. Everything is in there that you need to have a great time, and nothing else. So yeah, grab some friends, grab some pets, sit on down and watch this some point. If you like that, I would also say check out Treasure Planet or Titan AE, which I haven't seen in years. I saw Treasure Planet, I think, this last year for the first time. Oh yeah, because it was an episode on the Movie Bros. So if you're ever curious, I'd say look back on that. So this is our second 2D early 2000s animation that I've referenced, either on this pod or the other. And I think I'll talk about Titan AE next at some point. But that was Atlantis: The Lost Empire. From there, I don't know why now Netflix is really pushing these on me, but I didn't realize that Meet the Parents is actually a trilogy, because then it's Meet the Fockers, Fockers. Yes, it's a funny last name. That's the whole kind of dumb bit. This is exactly what I expected from a sequel to this. Just kind of more or less the same thing. Kind of not very funny, dumb, raunchy humor, as now that Ben Stiller has, spoiler alert, gotten De Niro's blessing to marry his daughter. Then they're meeting Ben Stiller's parents, which is, what is the main guy's name? Dustin Hoffman and his wife Barbara Streisand, who play kind of like raunchy Florida people. And again, there's a couple little funny bits, but it's all right. I would give this more like a 1.5, maybe 2 if I'm being generous. I don't know why. I'm glad, honestly, actually, that he is as famous, quote unquote, as he is, Ben Stiller, because I actually think he's done a lot of other good things. If you look into his career, the older he's gotten, he's actually he's stepped aside from acting. He's done a lot of cool like advocacy and philanthropic work. But he also, I think he did Zoolander, which is, it's very fun for what it is. It's very fun. But he also I think he became famous enough to where he had enough leverage to do things like uh, what's it called? The Secret Life of Walter Mitty. If you've never seen this, I highly recommend it. It's up there on my list of favorites. It's something I would show someone who's like between 16 to like even honestly like 25, 26, where they're like figuring out life and figuring out what you want to do and having to make choices that might impact the future and afraid to take leaps. And that's, again, I'm talking about Meet the Fockers, which is, again, kind of a weird phrase to say, but if you saw this and thought, man, I wish he could have done something better, he has. Check out Secret Life of Walter Mitty. From there, today, this afternoon, after hitting Costco and doing some errands and getting my dog's nails trimmed and vacuuming the house and mopping my bathroom and all the other things, and cleaning out my car, my new car, or at least new to me car, and restocking it with all the things that I usually put in there. You know, the roadside assistance stuff. I put my my frisbees for when I go and with friends and drink and do frisbee golf with. After I did all that, I sat down with my dad, because now that he's retired, every once in a while he's like, "Oh, I'm just gonna watch movies all day," because who knows, maybe that's who I'm gonna turn into when I'm old. But we rewatched the second Doctor Strange, which is Doctor Strange in the Multiverse of Madness. If you're in on all these superhero cape wearing type movies, this is pretty down the line. I mean, that kind of stuff kicked off in, I think, 2008 with Iron Man and The Dark Knight. This came out in 2022, so this is, I mean, lots of movies have paved the way for this, and parts of this. So I should preface it with, I've only seen this once before. The first time I saw it was pretty underwhelming. I thought the CGI was really not good. Not as bad if you see like the newest Ant-Man movie. It's horrendous, and I thought the writing and the chemistry and all parts of this did not work for me. Granted, again, I only saw it once. I made my decisions about it and I moved on. For some reason, my parents bought it, and I was like, that seems like a dumb decision. But then we rewatched it today, and no, it's not. It's not amazing. It's not perfect. I wouldn't say it's one of my favorites, but it is much better than I remember it being. I bumped it up from a 1 star to a 3. This time around, okay, the director, his name is Sam Raimi. He's known, I mean, most people would know him for either horror movies, or he also did the original Spider-Man trilogy before superhero movies really became a thing, with Tobey Maguire as Peter Parker. Those are those are fantastic. Number 2 is by a lot of people, I mean, most people think it's the best superhero movie ever made, and one of the best movies ever made, actually. Either way, some of the horror bits that he sprinkled into this, seeing this again, is actually pretty good. And the first Doctor Strange movie had a lot of like trippy, cool effects, which this movie also does have. But still, some of the CGI, some of the special effects, not so great. Feels very much like, oh, you are standing behind a green screen. And some of the writing and the acting just would not be choices that I would make per se. So yeah, there's some things that were left to be desired. Am I glad? I'm glad I rewatched it, because to be honest, I have not a great opinion of it, but a much better opinion of it. So yeah, that was Doctor Strange in the Multiverse of Madness. 3 out of 5 stars. I don't know if I'd recommend it, especially if you haven't seen the first one, but that was a movie-filled week. My goodness. That was, I think, like 10 movies. And obviously, I think I've said this in pretty much every single episode of this I've ever done. My quote-unquote weeks. Some weeks, sometimes I call it a week after 4 days. Sometimes it's 7, sometimes it's 10. I'm slowly trying to get back to an even 7, so these are coming out every week. And every week is going to be different, so sometimes life gets busy. Apparently I just had a little more time this week to fit in movies. Or I've also cut back on my asleep by midnight, up at 9, because I don't know if I need 9 hours of sleep every single day. So I'm staying up. Of course, that last 45 minutes to an hour are reading, but that's still, I'm going to sleep at a roughly 1, up at 9. 8 hours is plenty. That gives me a little bit more time in the day if I want to fit in a movie somewhere. I do. So that's why there's 10 movies this week. What did you watch? If you have seen any of the things I talked about, do you agree? Do you not agree? Let me know in either comments on Instagram, Spotify, Amazon, Apple. If you like this, tell a friend, tell your family, tell your pets if they listen to you. And, you can rate this podcast. You can rate the Movie Bros. You can review this podcast. You can review the Movie Bros. Again, I've said this maybe 2 or 3 times now, and I'll probably keep saying it every episode, but this is just a companion podcast. Just a quick little recap of my week, roughly a week, for the Movie Bros. So again, if you're interested in something that's, I feel like an actual well-designed, that has different segments, and it just feels like an actual conversation, I would say, again, check out the Movie Bros. That's also anywhere that you find podcasts, as well as Instagram. And hopefully everyone else has a wonderful rest of their week. And it is Monday that when I'm recording this, hopefully /editing/posting. And, you watch something. If that's a show, if that's a limited series, if that's a movie, find time for some sort of visual art, as I said earlier. And I'll see everyone next week.